figuring out that ultimately what I do, what energizes me and what I'm good at, that intersection, is turning purpose into performance. And I do that for nonprofits. That includes churches in there too, but nonprofits and more purpose driven businesses. So I have several for profit companies that are clients, but I would say that those clients, those founders, have the heart of a nonprofit, but the mind of a really savvy business owner. And so we click and connect really well. And then you mentioned at the top of the show the three things that I'm helping those organizations do, and so it's doing that at scale and finding those people to that I can help along the way, whether it's through a podcast, an article, research that I've just started doing, or directly through services that I can provide to them.
Entrepreneurs, we are going from Florida to Texas today, and be sure to stick around all the way to the end because we're going to talk about his do-it-yourself roadmap, absolutely free. But in the meantime, what are we looking at today? How to create focus for an organization so that it scales without chasing people off or costing you your health. How to fuel high-performance teams without being the smartest person in the room, and how to create leaders worth following even if someone never intentionally mentored or developed you. Welcome back to That Entrepreneur Show. This week, we are bringing on Kenny Lange. Kenny, thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to learn more about what into your journey. And if this is your first time listening to us today, this is That Entrepreneur Show, the #1 podcast for small business owners, entrepreneurs, and high achievers. We get right to the point here. We're going to learn about his journey, his company, but of course, not just the wins. We're looking at the losses, the adversities overcome, the lessons learned, because that is what's going to help you on your journey. This show is brought to you by Coming Alive Podcast Production, the full-service podcast production company with branding tools such as ghost writing. Be sure to head to comingalivepodcastproduction.com to look at all there is to offer. But for today, we're going to learn everything he has to offer after selling his company that he started in his late 20s to another agency. Now looking at the soul framework, everything in between as a director of ops and other areas. You got your hands full, Kenny. You like to stay busy, it seems like.
I definitely do. I mean, he didn't even mention I have 5 kids, so my hair is graying rapidly, man.
Oh, man, I'm sure it is not easy to balance being a five-time dad and a business owner. What is some advice maybe you can give out to fellow business owners who are also parents? What are some things that work for you to balance that time?
I think it has to start with the relationship with your spouse. Like you've got to get really clear on how, number one, understanding how you're wired. So there's got to be self-awareness, and then honesty with your partner. I'm fortunate. I have a much better wife than I deserve, and we decided, early on, like I'm high drive, talks a lot. She's extremely introverted. And while she has her own drive, it really complemented mine. And when I said, hey, I want to bet big and I want to go out and do my own thing, she understood the risk, but said, yeah, let's give this a run. And so now we're on our second time around of starting a business, and we love the freedom that comes from it. So we know that there are trade-offs, but we love it.
Well, let's talk about that first business. What are some lessons learned you had from that business? But please first introduce it.
Yeah, so my first business was a digital marketing agency, HubSpot partner. That was the ecosystem I swam in.
Yeah.
And I um I mean, I wanted to eat. So just hunger will drive you, and needing to provide for your family. But I learned that there's a whole lot that I don't know. It's not enough to just be really intelligent technically on a specific topic, right? I thought, hey, I understand how to build a website. I understand copywriting, branding, messaging. I understood those things, but there's a whole lot that comes from being an entrepreneur that isn't talked about understanding, your bookkeeping and taxes and hiring, firing, and developing people, and the fact that the people you hire won't care as much as you do and aren't as driven or need you a lot more than you think they should. Those were a lot of the things that snuck up on me that I had to learn on the fly. I mean, to use a cliched analogy, whatever vehicle you prefer, but it's like, building the ship while sailing it, or flying the airplane while it's still being built.
Certainly, all of those lessons learned, you don't really have preparation for, because like other things, if you don't experience it, you have no idea what to expect, how to combat it,
Right.
and certain things get easier, certain things don't. But he's able to compile all his lessons learned from that first endeavor to skyrocket the second one, to jump over that adversity that you faced.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the motivation behind company number two.
Yeah, so there's a couple different things. One, I got some breathing room at the company I sold mine to, and because there was still a lot of pressure, still fast paced, but there is a difference between sitting in that owner seat and being an employee. And a mentor of mine talks about the distance between chairs. You don't realize it. During that time, though, I got to try my hand at a few different things and really discovered a love for facilitation and coaching. And I got to do that a lot internally with a larger team than I ever had. And during that time, I figured out, hey, I really love systems. I love processes. I love frameworks. I love the one-on-one coaching and really helping unlock people's unique giftings and what are their passions and how can they make the most of how they are wired. And my wife and I, we're foster and adoptive parents. We fostered 18 kids over about 5 or 6 years. We've adopted two of those in addition to our three biological. And there's a level of impact we wanted to make that we can't make just by fostering more kids. And I got told that I would never make the kind of money that we said that we needed to make working for this other organization. And so we said, you know what? I have an affinity for this kind of work more than I do writing somebody's copy on their website. It's still fun. I'm a nerd, but it wasn't where I was getting the most energy. And there was a bigger calling, a bigger impact that we wanted to make. And so we jumped out and started the coaching practice that I have, Kenny Lane Coaching. And our long-term destination for the time being is that we want to positively impact 10,000 kids by December 31st, 2033, because kids from hard places deserve to be seen, heard, and know someone's coming to help. And so now that helps us align services, who we work with, who we donate to, so that we can make an impact on multiples of kids instead of just one at a time coming through our home.
Well, I've got two questions for you. Have you ever met someone named Hunter Beaton? He is the founder and CEO over at Day One Bags. He is in the San Antonio area. Have you met him?
Not met him. I have a client in San Antonio that's working in the nonprofit space, but he and I got connected on LinkedIn recently. So he's a newer connection, but no, he and I have not had a real time conversation yet, but I would love to.
Oh man, I wanted to make sure you were connected. I was introduced to Hunter by a good friend, Tony Alexander. Hunter is an absolute rock star. If you don't know Hunter, he's had his journey on this show. He is a founder over at Day One Bags, where they supply quality duffel bags and backpacks to foster children nationwide. Him and I linked up for a collaboration back in 2020, where I gave a copy of Mr. Lancy Talks Mental Health. Well, yeah, this book right here to every graduating senior in the foster care system in Texas. So what you're saying just really like struck home. Like I had to make the intro if not, but I can also just do a LinkedIn message because I think the two of you together could do something really, really powerful. But
Yeah.
now that you're on your second company, I see the energy through the screen. You feel fulfilled. You feel happy. What's next for the company?
So really figuring out who we're for. I know it seems like I should figure that out quickly being in marketing, but like who is my audience and how exactly do I help them? So there's just a level of clarity that it's taken me more time than I care to admit here publicly. But figuring out that ultimately what I do, what energizes me and what I'm good at, that intersection, is turning purpose into performance. And I do that for nonprofits. That includes churches in there too, but nonprofits and more purpose driven businesses. So I have several for profit companies that are clients, but I would say that those clients, those founders, have the heart of a nonprofit, but the mind of a really savvy business owner. And so we click and connect really well. And then you mentioned at the top of the show the three things that I'm helping those organizations do. And so it's doing that at scale and finding those people that I can help along the way, whether it's through a podcast, an article, research that I've just started doing, or directly through services that I can provide to them.
Well, it's great to see the impact you're making on the community. I'm gonna have to backtrack to something you said earlier. Did you say you had 18 kids in the house at one time?
No, not at one time. So I'd probably be totally just bald
I
at
was
this
gonna
point.
say, how in the world are you managing all of this?
No, we typically have had 5 to 6 kids in the house at any given point, but we've had 18 foster children come through.
And I
Um,
think it's absolutely remarkable what you're doing here. What is your biggest satisfaction? I have to ask. I know there's got to be countless satisfaction measures here of not only bringing happiness to someone's life, but now coexisting them in your life. What are some of your joys with that?
well, I mean, part of my story is that I'm adopted as well.
Okay.
And so I always knew that adoption would be a part of my parenting story. And I think the satisfaction I get um, is through getting to change the story a kid believes about themselves. And ultimately, it for me, and my faith informs a lot of what I do and what my family does, is really getting to show a kid that they may have started off in a rough spot, but that God loves them, cares for them, and wants them to have a fulfilling and blessed life. And if my wife and I, along with our other kids, can demonstrate that, can model that, can make that story possible, then that's what we want to do. And that's fulfilling. And I mean, parenting's a long game, right? Like you don't get immediate results. And sometimes you want to headbutt your kids because they're mouthing off at you and they're not acting grateful and all these things that kids just, being kids. But seeing them, seeing their faces change, in particular our older son, who's now 11, we got him when he was 6 or 7,
Amazing.
is we've seen him transform from a very closed off, suspicious, skeptical individual of like, am I safe? Not just physically safe, but am I emotionally, mentally, psychologically safe here with these people, to being very open. And now he's making jokes and he's sharing with us like the things that scare him or bother him, and we're able to step into the relationship more fully, as parents, and really provide him support along with his siblings, who have gotten a chance to know him better. But it no longer seems like he's a fresh addition to the family or anything other than he's always been a Lang. He's always been a part of our family, and he always will be.
I love that. Any plans to incorporate any kids into these entrepreneurial endeavors as they get older?
I did let my two oldest right now are 14 and 13. I said, you're coming up on the age where I can put you on the official payroll and put you to work. So we'll see what if they can actually help me. I mean, I'm not just going to pay them for nothing like any other employee. So what's there? I mean, there's an upside and a downside to having an entrepreneurial parent.
Yep, yep.
Is I'm going to have KPIs. You're going to be reviewed. We're going to have quarterly coaching conversations, those sort of things. I may have to send you over to HR, which is be their mother, to save them. But yeah, we're thinking about how we can bring them in, and they are, I mean, they're active participants in what we do in the fostering, but I am trying to subtly get my kids interested as like, hey, you could read this book, or you could look at this thing, or I let them watch me work, or if I'm on a podcast or TV and they're like, oh, well, that's really cool, or you got to go and do this during the middle of the day. My friends' parents don't get to do that. I was like, pretty sweet, huh? So yeah, just those subtle plants to see if I can get them involved to at least believe and understand they have agency over their choices. So if they want to
Mhm.
work for somebody, they can work for somebody. If they want to start their own thing, they can do that. But whatever it is, I hope that they're doing what God called them to do and how they are uniquely wired, because I know the difference between doing what you have to do and doing what you were designed to do.
Very well said. This whole show, you've been dropping gem after gem after gem. But before I get the contact info, everyone, this question has been brought back. It's the only curveball if you've never heard the show. Which entrepreneur would you choose to sit down with, dead or alive, to have a cup of coffee or hang out with, pick their brain?
Man, I feel like an easy one would be like Steve Jobs if I was picking dead. But I tell you, the one person I've been following and getting a lot from lately, that if I could have an hour of his time, I would love it, is Alex Hormozy. There's just a lot of his content has really resonated both from a practical and from the like mental emotional standpoint. I think it's just been incredibly helpful in the way that he thinks about things. It just clicks for me. And so, I mean, if he could help me build that Grand Slam offer and just clear the deck, I was like, it would be life altering. So,
I
plus
love
maybe he
it.
could help me get swole.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much for an awesome show. Appreciate you finding a way to connect, get in the community of entrepreneurs. Your story is definitely going to inspire all our listeners today. Where can we find all the stuff you do online?
Yeah, easiest place is kennylang.com. So that's where I have links to free resources. I know you're going to mention one, link to my podcast, How Leaders Think. But I also say come connect with me on LinkedIn. So I'm trying to post every day on there, and hopefully it's valuable. If it's not, let me know. I'm okay. If you can say, hey, dude, this sucks, don't ever do this again. That's helpful to me too, right?
I love it. Well, appreciate your kindness and putting that free resource in the description here on your website, a whole lot more. So everyone be sure to go check it out. You heard his testimonial today. Go connect with him on LinkedIn if you want to add him to your network. He is a great resource to have. And stay tuned for all the great work he is about to accomplish. Show is at That Entrepreneur Show on all social media. I am at Vincent A. Lancy on all social and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to me there to see the video content a few weeks after this show goes live to keep it fresh again. It's always great to watch it a second time around. And with that, we're going to sign off today, this time from Florida all the way over to Texas. Kenny, thanks again.
Thanks so much, Vincent.